Thank you, Dr. Harith, for the introduction and respected chairpersons, the faculty, the organizing team, headed by the very dynamic Dr. Neeraj Jain. It's kudos to him and his entire team for organizing this summit in these very challenging and trying times. So, but the task which is allotted to me, I see the theme of the conference, which is Diagnostic Week. But I think I'll take you to a therapeutic week in this, because I think as a pressing problem which now ails most of our Asian Indian population and the world over, we believe that the lipids are the core areas to be addressed as far as prevention of cardiovascular disease is concerned. So India has been the coronary capital of the world, and there is no doubt about what we see in terms of statistics on this slide is something that we have far exceeded our these numbers as we speak in 2020. The number of cases in million population in India is easily crossing 3 million. So deaths a year, I would be more specific. So certainly we are way ahead of our timelines as this graph would suggest. And the tsunami of this premature heart disease in India is basically has been seen in practically all segments of the population, starting from as low as 30 years of age. And the biggest problem lies in this prevention paradox, where we feel that ideally small changes made by large number of people results in greater benefit to the society than large changes made by a small number of people. And therein lies the prevention of paradox in India, where we believe that the high-tech hospitals in India have their resources primarily focused on tertiary prevention, which is directed at very few people who can afford it. Whereas the large percentage of this population who effectively needs primary and secondary prevention is actually deprived of this care. So while we understand that our lifestyle differences can really account for nearly 90 to 95% decrease in heart trends, heart disease trends, if we are careful about controlling our blood pressure, cholesterol, abstaining from smoking, and maintaining our body weight with good physical exercise and diet. But we are also aware that over the last 3 to 4 decades, as the science of pharmacology has evolved, we find that drugs right from ACE inhibitors, aspirin, beta blockers, statins have a potential to offer a combined reduction potential of nearly three-fourths in the prevention of CVD. As doctors, we are very well aware that the major risk factors for CVD, which are exclusive of LDL cholesterol, are cigarette smoking, hypertension, low HDL of less than 40, a family history of premature coronary heart disease. Respectively, we must focus on the age in males less than 55 and females less than 65. And of course, age at onset of disease, which in men, if it's premature, is below 45, and in women, less than 55 years of age if premature. So these are the major risk factors. And we also believe that all other forms of atherosclerotic disease, diabetes, and risk factors which confer a 10-year risk of CHD of more than 20% are also taken as CHD risk equivalents. So there are essentially three categories of risk that modify the LDL cholesterols, and these are that in people with established CHD, the LDL goal should be kept below 100, with 2 risk factors below 130 and 0 to 1 risk factor below 160, as has been the traditional worldwide teaching and recommendations. But way back in 2008, 2009, an Indo-US Health Summit was conducted, which kind of laid new guidelines for Indians, wherein the risk factors for all were brought down in value by 10%, except for cholesterol, which was lowered by 20%, and 30 milligram threshold was set for the LDL and non-HDL cholesterol. This is something, a terminology which came about a decade back, the non-HDL cholesterol, which we were never really focusing on, about which I'll touch a few slides in my presentation. So this summit, as you can essentially see, that guidelines for Indians were made stricter in terms of their waist size, both in males, females, their body weight, obesity criteria, blood pressure, blood sugar criteria, even coming down to improving our and raising the bar for stricter thresholds for exercise a day, which meant that you at least had to do double the amount of physical activity each day versus the Western population. And similarly came in the concept, as I mentioned, of non-HDL cholesterol. That means you deduct the HDL value from the total cholesterol to get a non-HDL, especially in those people, one, who have high triglyceride values. And that is, it's generally believed that people who have high triglycerides have low HDL, and in them, focusing on non-HDL along with LDL should be the apt strategy. So if you look at the guidelines then laid, that the non-HDL cholesterol versus global population should be 30 less, similarly for LDL. Another very important parameter came in this, and that was induction of lipoprotein A. This is something which had been ignored so far as guidelines were then concerned. I'll speak about LPA in a while. Soon thereafter, the Lipid Association of India in 2016 categorized these patients into low, moderate, high, and very high risk, vis-a-vis the international guidelines also, which were made based on these four subset of patients. And if you see in 2016, Indian bodies made it very clear that Indians need a still higher, you have to come below 70 and below 100 to respective 50 and 80 in the LDL and non-HDL category. And you see the drug therapy threshold, that the therapy to start drugs in all this segment of the population was also much stricter and on a much lower threshold than in the Western population. So these were some things which were clearly emerging in the second decade of this century, as we found that India was in the grip of a severe cardiovascular disease epidemic. And this essentially came from the fact that this is actually a fight between nature and nurture. And we found that both nature and nurture were actually complementing each other in terms of the Indians being genetically compromised by having high levels of lipoprotein A. And this was counterbalanced by a very unhealthy lifestyle associated with affluence, urbanization, and mechanization, which overall led to a very sedentary effects on the human body. So what is this LPA? So LPA, we must understand, is a strong oxidation specific biomarker, and it's a major carrier of oxidized phospholipids and lipoprotein PLA2. Remember, all these are very atherogenic biochemical compounds which circulate in the blood. And therefore, it becomes a predictor of premature CVD, MI, death, or stroke in patients with few or no traditional risk factors. This has been a problem with us Indians, that we mostly complain in terms that we hardly have any risk factors. Then why did we suffer from a heart attack or a stroke? It's believed that LPA is a very strong determinant of malignant coronary artery disease, as well as prematurity, severity, and rapid progression of atherosclerosis. It's also, in our studies, we have found that people with high LPA often have coronary in-stent restenosis or early occlusion of grafts after bypass surgery. So it's basically a risk amplifier in people with traditional risk factors. And therein you see that whomsoever people, patients or otherwise, in each category of their risk factors, people with LPA more than 40 milligrams have greater risk of premature CAD versus those with normal LPA. But remember, this LPA values of less or more than 40 have been strictly brought down to 20 in the Indian population. And that is why we say that lower values in Indians have to be targeted rather than looking at the Western criteria laid down almost a decade or 2 decades ago. So what are the established therapies for hyperlipidemia? From the 1980s and all, people have tried out bile acid resins, fibrates, and in the 90s, we came across the drugs like the HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors, followed later with ezetimibe and niacin. But statins have actually always caught our attention in terms of the most potent cholesterol-lowering drugs, albeit with some major side effects of myopathy, some effects on the liver enzymes, and contraindications in some subset of patients. But if we look at what the data and what the trials have shown us over a period of last 2 decades, the two primary prevention trials of AFCAPS, VOSCOPS, and thereafter the three big tertiary secondary prevention trials of statins clearly showed that in primary prevention, you can lower the CHD events by almost 40% and lower the mortality by 25% with optimum use of statins. And in patients with, in secondary prevention, in patients with established heart disease, these values are about 40 and 35%, 42 and 35% respectively. So this is decline in the events and this is decline in mortality. So as in my previous speaker, Dr. Anshul Jain also mentioned about the significance of high sensitivity CRP. Remember this concept was revived almost 20 years back. People, when the first primary prevention trial of statins was actually conducted, people had this population of patients, but this was actually analyzed on a post hoc basis almost a decade later. And we found that people who had low LDL but low hsCRP did not benefit from use of statins, unlike those with high sensitivity CRP with low LDL who further benefited from additionally benefited from use of statins. And the CRP basically what it means, it's a marker of inflammation. And we find that as the levels of CRP increase in the blood from a baseline of 1 milligram per liter, and in these 4 quartiles, you will see that as the CRP increases, so does the risk of future myocardial infarction in apparently healthy men. Remember, we are not talking about patients here. We are talking about apparently healthy individuals who may be having low cholesterol values but high hsCRP values. So this trial, which subsequently came a few years later of primary prevention, made it pretty clear that if you use 20 milligram rosuvastatin in patients who have low LDL, but the criteria for low here was 130, and these all were non-diabetic population. So you see, you pick up another subset of patients who are not diabetics, who have LDL below 130 but high hsCRP. You found a tremendous reduction in primary endpoints in this trial in both patients who had LDL below 70 and even in those segment of the population whose baseline LDL was below 50 milligrams. And you found a significant reduction in incidence of myocardial infarction, stroke, arterial revascularization, hospitalization for unstable angina, and multiple endpoints. Similarly, when an intermediate risk population was targeted in the HOPE-3 trial with just half the dose of rosuvastatin of what was used in the Jupiter of just 10 milligrams a day. So they found that using rosuvastatin in this segment of the population brought down your composite endpoints of CV deaths, myocardial infarction, stroke, cardiac arrest, revascularization, and heart failure by 25%. So this was a clear example of a therapy which you could give practically unmonitored and achieve a benefit of nearly 25% in a very low to medium risk population of your society or the patient population to bring about a beneficial effect in the CV protection. The heart protection study, however, which had actually come earlier, had clearly shown that if you pick up patients both of primary prevention and secondary prevention in a common pool of, in a common study, which included patients with diabetes, without CVD, patients with CHD, and patients with other vascular diseases. Now, this was the first trial which brought in diabetic concern in cholesterol management. And this did not take baseline cholesterol as any of any importance. You could have low cholesterol values with these subset of patients, and yet it was found that a 40 milligram of simvastatin could bring about all the major beneficial protective effects on mortality of almost 15%, a major vascular event reduction of nearly a quarter. Patients with diabetes also benefited to the same extent, rather they benefited more than the non-diabetic population. And the impact on stroke was also very, very remarkable. So the medical implications became very clear that you maybe not be looking at the baseline cholesterol levels in patients who are high risk population for CV events, especially those with diabetes, peripheral vascular disease, and cerebrovascular disease. So this was an important thing we learned in the early part of this century. And later on in the subsequent years, we found that if you are using moderate or high dose statin therapy in all patients of either acute coronary syndrome, stable coronary artery disease, it became pretty clear from this that the meta-analysis showed that you have to bring the LDL levels, as Dr. Anshul was also mentioning in his talk, to less than 70 milligram per deciliter in patients with coronary heart disease or coronary heart disease equivalents like diabetes and peripheral vascular disease, etc. So the concept which came that then was that if you are seeing events even in patients at 70 milligram per deciliter of LDL, it obviously stands to reason that there is a residual cardiovascular risk which remains even after intensive statin therapy. And this was pretty clear in the Prove It trial of acute coronary disease and IDEAL and the TNT studies which were conducted in patients with chronic CVD. So this became pretty clear, and here the statins were not taken with placebo. They were not compared with placebo. The high dose statins were further compared with addition of ezetimibe, which we all know is a cholesterol lowering drug, which only targets the LDL cholesterol. And we found that even bringing down the levels to LDL levels to even 53 milligram per deciliter over a period of 6 to 7 years still was associated with a reasonable CV event rate over 6 years of nearly 32-33%. And this became further clear when we dissected this data more. We found that the MACE levels or the event rate levels were significantly reduced once you really targeted LDL below 50 and brought it down even to 30 or below values. So look where we proceeded from more than 100 to less than 70 to less than 50, and now even looking at values of closer to 30 milligrams. And this is the guidelines we started working on as to which patients, especially those with high risk CVD, would need the cholesterol lowering to that level. And therefore, the relative risk level from all the epidemiological and the randomized control data studies brought it down that your log linear relationship really starts at a value of LDL values of 40 milligram per deciliter, wherein the relative risk is set at 1. And then for every 30 milligram change in the LDL cholesterol, the CHD risk increases by about 30%. That means 1:1. 1 milligram is equal to 1 milligram change in LDL is equal to 1% rise in CHD risk from a target of 40. So hence we decided that optimum LDL should be targeted at 40. A 50% reduction in LDL should be targeted in patients. For Asian Indians, as I told you, we had already suggested in 2008 and thereafter in 2016 that the targets must be 30 milligram lower. And the non-HDL cholesterol is important in those with high triglycerides because we understand that in this population, the the HDL levels remain dominantly low. So statins were the drugs which had demonstrated therapeutic benefits right in the late 90s, early 2000s in terms of all these events which one would obviously target at when we were treating patients. But it also became pretty clear that the benefits of statins, which obviously accrue over time, are very important. And there is a small risk of diabetes with the use of statins, but however, the risk is low, both in absolute terms, especially when compared to the reduction in coronary events. So the current treatment guidelines took it back to it's all about statins. So you take any segment of the population, patient population, whether it's clinical atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, LDL of more than 190, a diabetic who is between 40 to 75 years of age, all these patients need high intensity statins unless they become intolerant. And people who are non-diabetic, who are in the 40 to 75 segment range, age range, but with a 10-year risk of more than 7.5, they also would be candidates, if not for high, then certainly moderate intensity statins. But the limitation became pretty clear that yes, we were handicapped that statins have a ceiling effect on lowering of LDL, number one. There is no evidence for target LDL levels, as I mentioned, in terms of atherosclerotic CVD risk reduction. As I told you, that people were getting events at 70 milligrams, people were getting events at 50 milligrams. And then there were these side effects of statins, which sometimes people would not tolerate. And therefore, there was this unmet need based on the statin limitations that you could not use these drugs well in patients with familial hypercholesterolemia, number one, and especially where high dose statins were failing to work. So therein came the concept of PCSK9 inhibitors. Essentially, the first two I would ask you to look at, alirocumab and evolocumab. These are basically monoclonal antibodies which work. I'll show you how. And evolocumab is available in India now for clinical use and is US FDA approved in these patients with familial hypercholesterolemia or in patients where statins, ezetimibe, and diet therapy fails to reach LDL cholesterol targets. So what is this PCSK9? It essentially stands for pro-protein convertase subtilisin kexin. Briefly to say that this is a protease enzyme which is expressed in the liver and intestines. It promotes the intracellular degradation. When you see the binding of PCSK9, which is represented by this, onto the LDL receptor, the internalization of the LDL receptor actually leads to destruction of this receptor in the presence of PCSK9. Therefore, the recycling of this receptor back to the surface of the hepatocytes is essentially affected, is reduced, and therefore the LDL clearance from the blood gets affected. Now, PCSK9 is a very simple method, mechanism to understand. The moment you have PCSK9 inhibitors in the blood, this will prevent the PCSK9, the enzyme, from binding on to the LDL receptor. Therefore, the internalization of the LDL receptor will lead to certain changes in the endosome, wherein the two will remain dissociated. The LDL receptor will go back onto the hepatic surface to bind with further LDL molecules for internalization. And the LDL will thereafter be taken care of by the lysosome, and only what is necessary for the synthesis will be addressed. So the general facts which came from PCSK9 was that they could reduce the LDL to as low as 70% from baseline. And the only problem was that this was a parenteral therapy to be given once or twice a month. They even had beneficial effects on the HDL and reduced the triglycerides as well. And their safety and tolerability was pretty good. So this was one clinical trial of acute myocardial infarction, the Odyssey trial, in which this drug was given in patients after acute coronary syndrome. As I told you, the Improve It study had shown that there is a residual risk after acute coronary syndromes based on your baseline LDL, which cannot be taken care of by statins. And it was in this group that you found that when you give alirocumab subcutaneously, just in patients 1 month after randomization for acute myocardial infarction, you could bring down the LDL levels from 70 or below, or 70 to below 50, and essentially in the 25 to 50 range. And in some patients, it even came in the 15 to 25 range, though that segment of the population was rather low. But more importantly, you found that the week, first 1 month decline of LDL from 90 to 37 was a significant modifier of the cardiovascular risk, which was very evident in terms of the primary efficacy endpoint, where you found that the curves actually began to diverge after 1 year, and there was a 15% reduction in overall the primary efficacy endpoints of death, myocardial infarction, stroke, or unstable angina. And therefore, it became pretty clear that this drug, over and above the use of statins, was a boon to patients of acute coronary syndrome to prevent future CV events. So this is what we learned from the Odyssey trial, that you could get 15% reduction in primary endpoints over and above the best treatments you were giving to the patients with coronary artery acute coronary syndrome. And please remember the guidelines which this study also recommended, that one must be looking at targets around 50 milligrams in the year 2018, had already been well endorsed by Lipid Association of India 2 years earlier, that Indians certainly needed a greater lowering of cholesterol values. And similarly, so the European Society of Cardiology in 2019 also made it pretty clear that you have to look at targets of below 70, and preferably keeping this value close to 50, 55 was also something which we had already, I would say, professed and probably predicted in 2016. But is there a further scope? As Indians, as I told you, we are more prone to CV events. And is 50 the real mark which we should be accepting now? Well, it again became pretty clear that from 50 also, we said that there were events which were taking place in patients to the tune of almost 5 to 6% decline of patient population every year. So evolocumab was the other PCSK9 inhibitor, which was studied again in patients, high-risk patients of CVD. And in this 4-year trial, it came pretty clear that a reduction of baseline LDL from 92 to 30 milligrams over 48 weeks was further associated with a 15% decline in the primary endpoints. And this has now become pretty clear that the need to reduce LDL to as low as 30 is particularly prevalent in our very high-risk patient population, and especially those with diabetes, where we find that the number to treat analysis clearly shows in the Odyssey and 4-year trial that look at how diabetic patient population benefits from the use of PCSK9 inhibitors. And this has now been endorsed well for primary prevention also as a class 2B treatment strategy in our high-risk patient population. And of course, as class 1 recommendation in patients with severe atherosclerotic CV disease. So this is something which we should really be looking at in the times to come. Apart from the fact that, yes, these are costly pharmacological interventions, but overall, we believe that they are much more cost effective than all interventions which we do as on an elective basis. Finally, my last few slides are also, as I mentioned, that triglycerides is a problem in our Indian population as well. And it's the risk associated with CVD is not only associated with the LDL, it's also about triglycerides as well. We were well aware that triglycerides, elevated triglycerides, are a risk factor for ischemic events. There were studies to show that low doses probably did not make much difference about using omega-3 fatty acid usage to lower the triglycerides did not work too well. But it became clear with certain studies in in later part of 2000s that high doses of EPA, 1.8 grams per day in the Japanese population could provide cardiovascular benefits. But a study as published in 2018 in NEJM showed it quite well that if you use fish oils in high dose of 4 grams per day in a patient population which already is on high doses of statins. Remember, 90% of this patient population and patients with primary prevention were taking moderate to high dose statins. Addition of 4 grams of fish oils every day could reduce your hazard ratio, could reduce your primary endpoint of clinical events by almost 25%. So this is something which showed that over and above statins, if you could target the triglycerides, this therapy also led to decrease in the hsCRP levels. It led to decrease in the lipoprotein A levels and thereby led to these favorable effects on the cardiovascular outcomes. So the effect seen with this has essentially been seen across all the multiple subgroup of patients with baseline triglycerides right from 135 up to 500, and a very impressive reduction in cardiovascular deaths, myocardial infarctions, and strokes. So if I have to conclude as to what is new, yes, in terms of understanding what is new, we need to understand the concept of non-HDL cholesterol, that targeting non-HDL in patients in whom you have saturated the LDL cholesterol thresholds and you find a residual risk in your patients, you need to target the non-HDL cholesterols. Lipoprotein A, understanding the molecule, how it causes coronary artery disease, how Indians as a community are predisposed. Nature has made us, Asian Indians, abound with lipoprotein A. So therefore, we really should be looking at therapies in the times to come on which target LPA as well. Lipid threshold values, I told you, for Indians are lowered both by the Indo-US Summit and the Lipid Association of India. Our LDL targets in secondary prevention are now touching almost 30 milligrams per deciliter. The LDL targets in primary prevention, of course, stay between 100 and below or even up to 70. The beneficial roles of PCSK9 and fish oils obviously remain unchallenged and should be should be in focus more in the times to come. Thank you very much for your attention.